yeah, like I said, we still have buyers looking to buy stuff. So I don't know that it's necessarily a confidence issue. I think it's more so just like an affordability from an affordability standpoint. Everybody still wants to buy homes. It's just a matter of affordability for a lot of people right now.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Back everybody to another edition of the Tom Storey Show. We've got a jam-packed episode. I'm excited for you to be here. If you're watching on YouTube, we just ask, throw this video a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, join our growing community. It's a lot of good people, and for the most part, Steve, the comment section has been very positive the last few weeks, and that's the type of community we are trying to build here with a few loud voices, but it is what it is. If you're listening on audio, just want to say thank you, and you're probably driving, so drive safe. Our guest this week is Jessie McLellan from the Lisa Abbot team. She services Durham Region and basically makes way better YouTube videos than both me and Steve combined. And you will surpass us very soon. Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So what's going on? So Durham Region, for anyone that doesn't know, can you break down what's Durham? Is it Toronto? Is it not Toronto? Do you say you're from Toronto when you're from Durham? What's going on?
So when I talk about Durham Region, I think Pickering to Oshawa, and then Clarington is technically part of Durham, but also Clarington. So when I talk about Durham, I'm thinking everything from Pickering to including Clarington.
Gotcha. So Clarington is a town. It's a town. Is that what it was called, or a city? So technically it's Curtis, it's Bowmanville, it's Orono, it's Newcastle. Okay.
But the way that our system breaks it down is a little bit different than the way most people use it.
Gotcha. Because I remember seeing one of those charts that was like the pre-pandemic, the January 2020 to January 2022 charts. And Clarington was number one. It had gone up 50% in value, like $552 sale price to almost $1 million. So right now in Durham, are you seeing this massive effect of the prices have totally dropped off here? Demand's dropped off. Like, what's it looking like on a day to day?
No. So we have low inventory right now. And so like we're still seeing multiple offers. We're still seeing kind of the demand from buyers on that side. Obviously, like Oshawa is a little bit tougher because I would say it's a little bit more pockety. So there are some areas that definitely get really great demand on every house. And then there are some that are maybe a little bit less desirable. And so they'll get fewer offers for sure. But yeah, nothing crazy.
So when we say multiple offers, because I feel like, if someone's listening and they're kind of like, not super into real estate, but they're like, watching the news headlines or whatever, you hear multiple offers, you're like, wait, how? Rates have gone up now 8 times. Prices have dropped off across the board. So multiple offers now, I would say, is more like just means the house sold. Doesn't necessarily mean that it got a crazy price or anywhere near the old prices, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It's just more indicative of the buyer demand that's there. But obviously affordability has gone down. And so it's just kind of, multiple offers that are still coming in at a lower price.
Right. But is it still going over asking price, or just many offers but it sells for 98% of asking?
Honestly, we're still seeing people pricing it really low. So that's a little bit of a harder question to answer, because if you're listing a house for $2 and it's worth $500,000, well, you're going to sell over ask every time, right? But yeah, we're still seeing people pricing low and either holding offers or doing a 24 or a 48-hour irrevocable, one of the two there.
Isn't it crazy? Like, Steve, so we've been talking about this for so long that the one of the big complaints we got when the market was hot is that real estate agents they're screwing everything up. They're listing low. They're holding these offer dates. It's manufacturing these prices that aren't real and blah, 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 blah. We went through everything and it's back and the buyers are participating again. Yeah. So like how? Why are people willing to participate?
Here's the thing. So Durham, I would assume I'm sure I've driven through Durham Region with Tom at one point, but not knowing where any of it is or how the landscape goes, it sounds like you're the burbs. So you're very similar to my market here, right? Like a lot of the people maybe that live in your area might even commute into downtown Toronto or something like that, or surrounding areas. So
Mm-hmm.
our market isn't doing any of that. Our market is in showing super weak number of sales, not really going into, I mean, there is a little bit of underpricing, I guess, but we're not seeing what you're explaining. And I'm thinking that the Toronto market is more resilient than ours right now, or the GTA area.
What's your, Jessie, what's the, like for a detached home in, I don't know, Pickering? Like what's the general months of inventory that we're seeing right now in your area? Is it still like under 3?
Yeah, we're still under 3 for sure.
Wow.
Interesting.
Crazy.
And Steve, where are you at now?
We're at 6 months across the entire board, across every asset class. So
Wow.
we are we're exiting a balanced market into a buyer's market everywhere. Obviously, with now interest rates going up yet again, we only continue to see downward pressure right at this. But I mean, the good stuff is selling. The low inventory is there. We met with a buyer last night, and given their criteria, there is currently no available properties, and
Nothing.
They have a decent budget. They're not looking for anything crazy. They're looking for an apartment. There is nothing in their criteria.
Because from the outside perspective, for me, Durham in outside Toronto, Jessie, I would assume that is similar to what Surrey is outside Vancouver, right? Like you'd think it's suburbs, it's more kind of cookie cutter homes that were built. A lot of them look similar. Not all. I'm not putting that in general, but more than Toronto, but. And both of those markets saw crazy increases in the last 2 years, because Vancouver and Toronto saw increases, but nowhere near like the outward markets. Why do you think it is, Jessie, that Durham inventory is still low? And then Steve, maybe you answer after. Why is Surrey doing what it's doing if it went through the same thing that Durham went through in that last 2 years? And I guess start with Jessie.
So I think that Durham inventory is still low for a couple of reasons. One, I think that people are hesitant to put their homes on the market because they're concerned that they're not going to get what they could have got in February, right? So it just kind of burns a lot of people that they didn't sell when they could have. And then the other kind of part of that is for buyers, a lot of people are still kind of just waiting. They're trying to play it out and see where interest rates go and see what effect that's going to have, because you have so many different places coming at you saying, well, interest rates are going up, so houses are going to crash. This is going to crash. We're in a bubble. We're all of these things, right? And so I think that as a whole, like we had a house here that had 36 offers on it, like a couple weeks ago.
Was it way underlisted?
So it was under list, yeah, for sure. But I don't think that it was priced that far under list to attract 36 offers
right.
And
what price point's that at?
It's first time buyer price point, right?
Okay.
And a lot of stuff in Oshawa and Clarington is in first time home buyer price point.
Okay.
But you also obviously still have the bigger stuff. But I work a lot with first time buyers, so that's kind of the perspective that I have. And obviously, there's always going to be more competition in the entry level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that entry level condos are still kind of moving pretty quick. Steve, I guess same question for you. Why is Surrey the opposite? Why are the sellers in Surrey going, oh, you know what? We're actually going to do it now. Did Surrey, we'd have to look at the numbers, but did Surrey go up so much, even more than Durham, that it's just going to take a longer here to figure out what's happening?
Oh, man, we went crazy. I mean, I have no idea what Durham numbers did, but I think we did 27% one year and 40% the next for like 2020 and 2021, right? So there's a lot of room to come down. What's holding back right now is we have a lot. First of all, I think something like 8 of my last 9 buyer appointments were permanent residents, not Canadian citizens. So that $500,000 number old JT stuffed in there this year, that's going to have a massive effect on Toronto. It's going to have a massive effect on the Fraser Valley. Especially, we've got such a large Indian community here. A lot of those people are coming from India, obviously coming from places like China and that sort of thing. So that's going to keep demand up. I've had for a January fewer deals so far this January than any other January, which I expect.
Stop really showing off.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm doing no deals too. I mean, we got deals on the board, but fewer than any other year. And then at the same time, more buyers appointments than I've ever had in any other January. Now, what's stopping a lot of people is they were maybe thinking about doing something 12 months ago when there was absolute insanity. They spoke to a mortgage broker. That mortgage broker was like, yeah, you can get 7 times your income with 20% down. And now they go back and they're like, oh, thank goodness. Properties have come down 25% in some areas, 40% in some areas. And they go to the bank and the guy's like, oh, yeah, by the way, your new loan amount is 4 times your income.
Right.
So guess what? Your rate is double. You still have the same payment, and now you're getting an even lower, I'm going to say lower class, but that's not the right way to say that, lower asset class type of property as if you had bought a year ago in the frenzy. So those people are going, well, that's not enough space for my 2 kids, 3 kids. Well, that's the cost of borrowing now. So now, like, there's something, I don't want to ramble too long because I want the best YouTuber in Canada to have something to say here, but there's something
we're going to get into that too.
There's something to be said about now that, like, we had that buffer of the stress test from like your actual rate to the stress test. But now I think we've hit the stress test, and I think we're going to be at that level for a long, long time. So affordability is now way worse because we're kind of redlining against the stress test all the time when before we had a buffer. If that makes any sense.
Jesse, we've recently hired someone that cuts up these podcasts into shorts, and I think Steve just wants his airtime, so he practices these little monologues, and he's like, because what he just said is a perfect cut up short. Like, it was just perfect. I know exactly what he's doing. So just to add on to that, Steve, because I want my short now.
Tom, I got one thing to say first. Sorry, Jesse, we're just gonna ramble because
I've got lots of questions for Jesse. Yeah.
I gotta give him crap. Are you in your new home, Tom, or is your microphone not on? Because it's way more echoey than previously.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in my new home, but I haven't like set everything up, so it's a bit more echoey. Hopefully, it's not too bad.
No, your short's gonna suck this week. Is all I'm saying.
Okay. I had said something that I initially regretted early last year. And I made a statement. I said, is it possible that Toronto condo prices are the highest they've ever been, while also being the lowest they've ever been? If that makes sense, right? Like, is it, it's high, but it's not going back down. And obviously on an actual dollar amount, that was an incorrect statement. But they are more expensive to own now because of the rates. Way more expensive.
Yeah, the affordability is so much less.
If I had shifted before, what I said is like the affordable side of it hasn't really changed. I don't know, just a thought. Jessie, what are you finding? Because you're working with a lot of first-time home buyers. Like, are they struggling right now in competition? Are they saying like, where's all the listings? What's going on there?
I would say it's a combination of both. Yeah, they're definitely like, okay, well, where's all the listings? I was told, we're going to get a little bit more. And I think part of that is time of year. But I also think that part of that is, a lot of people just kind of waiting it out, on both the seller and the buyer side, to be honest. But we stress to buyers, get pre-approved, get, as many of your ducks in a row as you can before you go out and shop. And sometimes it's the reality stick that just kind of slaps them.
So
in their price point.
In Durham, what is a first-time home buyer price point?
Anything between, if you're condos, you're probably looking around under 6 still.
Okay.
Condo towns, you're probably looking in that 6 to 650 range, and then anything else, you're kind of around I would say anything under 7 is first time home buyer price point.
And Steve, what would your market be on that same question? Like, what's first time home buyer? Same, kind of similar?
It sounds similar. First time home buyers, if you're lucky, 450 to 550 1 bedroom condo. And
Yeah,
then,
that's
if it you could get into a 550 2-bed condo older building, but they're not getting into, $750,000 townhouses like they were a year ago.
Which
Right? It can't
mathematically you
qualify.
wouldn't think is a first-time home buyer property, right? At $750,000, that shouldn't be a first-time home buyer.
Jesse, do you have an exemption there on like transfer taxes or anything for first-time home buyers? Because ours is like 500 grand, and it's like, yeah, you're getting a 450 square foot unit. Thank you.
yeah. So we get a rebate on our land transfer. So we're not as bad as Toronto, and we have, I think it's either 400 or 500,000 as well, where it'll help with that.
So do you get that? Do you have to pay that and then get it back, or do you just not get it, or do you claim it like we do and just not have to pay it on closing?
So I believe it's that you just don't have to pay it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It just comes off. And because I know I've like memorized this, I've said it so many times, the Toronto first time home buyer credit is $8,475. So in Durham, it's probably half that and that is the maximum, right? It's not necessarily that amount, but if you go over basically 600,000, that's the credit you are getting back, but it just comes off. But that's because we pay the double tax, and in Durham, you only pay the one tax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So interest rates went up again by Bank of Canada. That is the 8th rate hike we have seen on January 25th since last March. Now, it was a 25-point hike. The language in the report seemed the most optimistic it has been. That's probably the best way to put it. Where they called it, they didn't want to say a full pause. They said a conditional pause, which is great language, which I'm now curious, Jessie, I know it hasn't been that long since that happened, but are your buyers asking you about Bank of Canada? Is the public acknowledging this? Are they having conversations with you? Is that going to bring this confidence now that, hey, maybe things are pausing for a bit? We can at least understand what we're doing and pricing will make more sense?
I think it's definitely something that that people are aware of, especially buyers and getting through their qualification process. But like I said, we still have buyers looking to buy stuff. So I don't know that it's necessarily a confidence issue. I think it's more so just an affordability, from an affordability standpoint. Everybody still wants to buy homes. It's just a matter of affordability for a lot of people right now, and inventory.
Yeah, because there's not a lot in that entry level price point.
No, I think in all of December we had I think it was 380 sales or something like that. So how do you cope with that inventory? Right? Of course, there are multiple offers when it's that low.
It seems like, and Steve, I've noticed this even from my YouTube videos recently, that even if someone is against housing in the fact of what it has done in prices and disagrees with what could happen in the future, I've gotten some comments recently that are like, I'm waiting to buy. So even though they disagree with all these things, they're still saying, I want to buy this thing. I just don't agree with it at its current price. And whether they're right or wrong, only time will tell. So it seems like the Canadian confidence in terms of wanting to own a home is there. Just we're disagreeing with all the other things surrounding it. Would you agree
You mean
with that?
people still want to sleep inside, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Oh yeah, no. What are you going to do? You're not going to buy. You're going to rent. You're going to throw away money. But yeah, man, the people. I don't see demand. As far as people reaching out to me, slowing.
Yeah.
It's just, holy crap, I can't afford that. Holy crap, that payment is huge. I don't want to move out of the area. And right now, rents are still probably cheaper than buying with 20% down.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was speaking with a client just recently who's been renting for a dozen years, and they're the rare one. They've socked away a ton of money. And now they're looking to purchase. And they're like, well, it's 20% off last year. Well, yeah, if you're a cash buyer, that's great, right? If you're 70% finance or 80% finance, which most of my buyers are, that's a big expensive payment.
I don't really have, I don't, where are these cash buyers all these people are talking about? What,
The
I don't
PRs,
see,
man. The
they're not
PRs, I
calling me.
can't believe it. I
Really?
can't believe it. People coming from other countries that were like, the pandy was not handled well there, and they're coming here. And I bet they're probably they're coming definitely here outside of Vancouver. I don't know if Jessie, if you're seeing the same thing at all, or if you've got a more traditional kind of commuter. What is your main demographic? Like, who are you servicing generally?
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Real Estate Video Course. Today's real estate industry has changed, and you can no longer rely primarily on door knocking, cold calling, and geo-farming. While these strategies still work, video provides something that these traditional methods just don't. And that is leads that reach out to you because of you and the message and content that you are providing. I believe that video is king, and that through video, you can leverage your message, create stronger relationships, and become the authority on real estate in your marketplace. The Real Estate Video Course is a 5-part course that will teach you the fundamentals of video, including why it's so impactful, the equipment that you need to invest in to get started, and the proven tips and strategies used to ensure long-term success. So go to videocourselogin.com today to become a true creator, level up your editing and production skills, and develop your real estate video plan to leverage your message to current and prospective clients. That's videocourselogin.com. The link is below in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code TOMSHOW at checkout for 10% off any purchase. That's videocourselogin.com and use the checkout code TOMSHOW. That's TOMSHOW.
Yeah, I would say still probably a combination of people who are commuting into Toronto, or people who have gone online for their jobs, or some kind of hybrid model. And again, we saw a lot of that in the pandemic too, where people were moving from Toronto to get a little bit more space. I mean, our lot sizes are usually bigger. We just have bigger homes than what you would get in Toronto at
much bigger.
The same budget, right? Yeah. I mean, heck, you wonder why Bowmanville has grown so quickly and has skyrocketed in price so quickly during that time. It's because the homes there are beautiful. You can get a 4-bedroom detached for the same amount of money that you would be looking at for, a semi in Toronto. So it weighs it out a little bit differently. And with the GO station and stuff like that, a lot of people were opting to make that move.
It's a really good point, because when we look at the numbers, we go, okay, this city costs this much versus this city. But we don't typically break down, well, the $1.5 million average price here gets you this, like, 2,500 square feet, 50-foot lot by 100 or 150, where in Toronto, yes, maybe like some markets on the, Steve, when they come out with like the affordability scales, like most unaffordable cities to live in, and Toronto's always like up there. It's true on the price point, but it's also true on like you get less, where like some of these other markets, it's similar, but it's actually not a comparison, because you're getting double the house for the same price, if not less.
Yeah.
And when you're in Toronto, you can, walk to the Leafs game. And when you're in Surrey or Pickering, I'm sure you better be comfortable with that big screen TV, because it's a lot bigger effort to, get out to the nice restaurants and that. So obviously those people, that's why I guess they're probably more of the family, right? They need more space, and they don't want to live that downtown Tom Storey lifestyle.
Well, that's not my lifestyle anymore. I went to the game last night, and I've moved, and it was a trek.
How long's your drive now to the game?
I actually drove to the old neighborhood, parked, and then walked from there.
You still have your parking pass?
For like
2
months. Yeah, for 2 months. But Jessie, you go to quite a few Leafs games, right?
So we go to a few, but we go to a ton of concerts.
Okay.
We do that all the time. So but we train in, and
you do?
All the time. So for us, at least, it's an hour on the train, but then we would Uber from our house to the train, and then and then just train in. But it allows you to drink. It allows you to, you know, have a good time without having to deal with driving.
Yep.
And for us, it's an hour on the train. So it's really not that big of a deal.
Does Toronto have the same train issues that we do?
Like, what are your train issues? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I stopped taking the train because, you know, I don't prefer to sit next to a person that smells of urine, that sort of thing.
Maybe more TTC.
Yeah.
I like.
Oh, you guys
Train.
have like different.
Go
transit
Train
systems?
is a little different.
Okay.
Yeah, Go Train is a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, I know
okay.
exactly what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have we have something called West Coast Express, which is like the commuter train. Like you can get an assigned seat with like a laptop plug-in, and then with the SkyTrain, it's like, I mean, thank goodness they're vinyl seats, man, because I'm sure they get washed down 3 times a day.
I'm more worried about the person sitting next to you, not because you're sitting next to them, but that they're beside you.
Thanks, Thomas. You know what I'm worried about? I actually saw a video on your channel, and it's topical, Jessie. So I want to talk your thoughts on title fraud.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on?
There's been like so many stories recently.
So I'm researching a video for this on my main channel right now, and it's very newsy.
Yes. Yeah.
Steve's research is watching Jesse's video and redoing it.
That is part of it. Yeah. I mean, it is the best YouTube channel in Canada, so we have to do our research. But like, when you read the fine print and you know, like, title law and stuff, not maybe as big a story as they're making it out to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's really more so the scariness of it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody sort of thing. And we are hearing so many different stories. So whether or not it ends up being worked out through title insurance or whatever, I think the scary part is just that somebody could do that to anybody sort of thing.
Because it happened a few times in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like there was, I remember the second article was like, it happened again.
Yeah, for sure.
The news definitely is trying to make it feel like, you know, this is happening frequently.
All the time. Yeah.
My research says quite different. But have you guys ever encountered a client where you're like, I'm not sure this is the person they're trying to say they are?
So not on a buy, like not with a buyer and not with a seller. But I have with leases, and leases are sometimes treated a little bit like the Wild West out here, and that's absolutely not the way they should be handled. I feel like it might be a little bit different in Toronto because there are more high-end leases, and but yeah, so I would say that there are definitely some documents that we've looked at that are like, I don't know if this jives right. And we've also had people say, hey, do you know if we could get any better looking documents for a lease? And I'm like, absolutely not. And and we just straight up were like, absolutely not. That's not the way we roll. We try to avoid leases, if I'm being 100% honest.
So does every real estate agent.
Yeah, I mean, just being honest, we will definitely help out a past client, but there's so much work involved with it, like more work than a purchase, which sounds absurd when you say it out loud, and then just dealing with the agent on the other side of it. You don't know with a lease necessarily how it's going to be handled. And
it's a FinTrack a tenant?
I don't
you
think
don't
so.
have to do it for a tenant. Like for a lease? No.
So that's like the one thing where they like that one story where it was rented out to this couple and then somebody else posed as the homeowner and listed the place. It was like they did some sort of background because they had copies of their fake IDs basically. So they have pictures of what the people actually look like. So somebody must have been slightly doing their research, but I'm assuming then, like if you're renting out to someone and they're going to try and fraud your title, do they have a fake credit score as well? Because they had fake bank accounts even for the money to go into.
I'll tell you what, Steve.
Honestly,
I've seen fake credit scores on
Really?
lease
Yeah.
applications. They're just taking
Yeah.
someone else's and somehow photoshopping a name and a different credit.
No, but don't you pull? Doesn't, like, when I rent to a
Yes, that's how you find out
tenant.
it's fake, because
okay.
but you still, like, we can't just pull somebody else's credit. You got to get approval. So they typically
Yeah.
submit their own documents, and then you'd hope, like, our front desk can do it once we have approval that we can pull it. But not everyone does the back end a pull. It's they rely on the documents they are given. You see that too, Jessie?
Yeah. Yep. And like Equifax is one of the ones that would be doctored. 100%.
I'm happy you brought this up, actually, because with this title fraud stories, and obviously going back to last year with the mortgage fraud stories, I would actually say what I've personally seen the most in my business is there being issues on the leasing side, like the leasing fraud.
Yeah.
That's actually probably where it is most apparent that it is happening. But maybe because there's less money on the line. I don't know why it's less of a story or less of an impact on the economy. I'm not sure what the answer is, but it's definitely, if you're looking at areas of the industry, the tenant side of fraud is probably the biggest part of it.
What's a lease fraud?
Well,
though? Like, how does that play?
Just lying about your documents.
Just lying about your documents, lying about income, that sort of stuff. But what's really difficult, and I'm not saying fraud is ever okay, obviously, but I do feel for people who are really just looking for a place to live, right? And they're having to, maybe their previous landlord sold, and they are having to compete in a highly competitive rental market that we were just in, and they don't have the income for that. And so they're constantly being rejected and rejected and rejected. And then I understand the mentality of, at some point you just have to do something different or you're homeless. Exactly. They get into that desperate mode. And then it's survival. And I mean, it's housing, and we look at it from, different asset classes and different whatever, but ultimately it's still somebody's home and still somebody's place to live. And that, I think, with leases is a little bit more at the forefront for people.
Yeah. It's like, I'd say, if CBC wants to dig into a pocket of our industry where you're going to find stuff, it's going to be there more than anywhere else, probably, realistically. I wanted to talk about another topic here that will affect everyone listening to this, all three of us with our clients. I always say it wrong if it's OSFI or OSFI. I always get the acronym incorrect. But they're talking about even tightening up the stress test even more. Stephen, thoughts on that? Is it not high enough? Are we not being tested high enough?
I'm waiting for Jessie, because I don't really even understand the proposed new rules.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were, if I'm correct here, I think they were talking about even tighter, like income rules and weighing that sort of stuff heavier. And you look at the cost of purchasing, and you look at what you have to be stressed at, and I think that anything that's come out that I've seen hasn't done a good job explaining what they're actually going to be putting into place or what's being proposed specifically. I find it confusing, and I don't know how that would work moving forward.
I mean, essentially, if you're listening to this, it will just make it more difficult to qualify for a mortgage than it already is, right? Like they have a few different proposals here, but
is it not, Tom, to make it okay? So no matter what, you can't borrow more than 4 times your income or something like that.
I think that's one of the proposals. Yeah.
So that's so for instance, that would be saying no matter what interest rates do, you're going to qualify basically maximum as if the interest rates are 5.5%, 6%.
Basically.
Because I guess it's even higher than that now, because we're qualifying at 7%. So they're basically, instead of moving the stress test from 5.25% to 7.25%, they're basically saying, we're going to treat it like it's 7. without
Well,
actually having to change that rule.
But with the income part, I think really all that does is create a breeding ground for strikes and like labor actions, right? Because then people are like, listen, we're not getting paid enough. I can't buy a house, right?
yeah.
And then that will just cause even more
And
issues with the
and the feedback that
economy.
I've heard on this is that they are the regulator of the big banks, right? So the big banks are regulated by them. Now, these new rules, if they were to come into place, would not affect the credit unions, the B lenders, the other money, where a lot of the feedback is, hey, if you make it tighter on the legitimate ways of getting a mortgage, that people are working their asses off every day just to own real estate in this country, and we can go all deep on that kind of stuff. You're now pushing them to a riskier area
Yep.
or direction to then, because they're gonna get it. They're gonna get it somewhere. If you don't allow them in the proper way of doing it on the banks that are heavily regulated, and you're gonna let them go elsewhere, that's not going to be a good thing either. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of talking points on this, but regulation and real estate are words that are just like they go one before the other.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for Jesse's next video on this so I can understand it better. Because, like, honestly, I don't. I was listening. I watched Nolan's, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand what you're trying to do and making it even harder at this point. I also don't understand the sentiment behind trying to make it harder currently, because it's not easy currently.
But they're worried about potential defaults. That's what they're trying to get ahead of here.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, Jessie, I have a question for you. Take yourself out of being a real estate agent. Would you buy in this market? What would your answer be for you?
I think that even just like historically, real estate goes up. If it's a long play, then yeah, I mean, the best time to buy would have been when I was 9 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could get my dream house for 200 grand. So it just, yeah, I would buy.
Yeah. Steve, what would you do?
And I think that,
sorry, keep going. No, sorry, keep going.
No, go on.
I'd rather hear you talk than Steve. So
Me too.
And I think that even with higher interest rates in being able to purchase at a lower price point, long term, you still would be setting yourself up for a better outcome because, if interest rates are better in 3 years or 5 years or whatever, you have the chance to renew or refinance, right? I would rather owe less on the principal of my home than get a lower rate. And that's just the way I feel about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Steve,
I've always been the opposite of like I want the lowest. Sorry, not me. I think for most people, they want the lowest payment because that's where they're focused on. They're focused on making that monthly nut every single week or month and paying their bills. But it's funny, as soon as you give people all this choice of, hey, we can go out and, these properties have been on the market for 15 days or 20 days or 30 days, then they just lay off. And, oh, well, it's not a good market. And I just keep there are so many people in 2 or 3 years from now that are going to regret not acting within the next 12 months because at some point something will change. The economy will roar again at some point. Like, it's inevitable. It's ups and downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all those people will be like, oh, I should have done something. And they're going to be kicking themselves. Now, should you speculate right now? No. Should you speculate ever? Probably not. But you should not shy away from making a better decision for your family, like Tom Storey has just done. Now he just has to work on his echoey room.
Is it that bad? Is it that bad?
Yeah, we'll work on it for you, Tommy. We'll work on it. Jessie, I have questions for you because your YouTube channel is the Lisa Abbot team, and you are not Lisa Abbot. So you are a team member. Are you our first not team leader, team member? Would you call yourself buyer agent? Is that correct? Or are you associate agent? How does that work?
No, so we really do. I mean, Lisa's been in the business for like 25 years, but we really treat a lot of stuff more like a partnership. And so YouTube was really one of the things that I felt passionately about. And we are still ultimately the Lisa Abbott team, but that's definitely something that I've ran with more. Yeah. But I get Lisa all the time now because that's the banner and on the cards that we give out, right? But
I always think like, even if they call me the wrong name, as long as they called me, that's all I care about.
They're still calling me about real estate, right? That's all that matters. It sounds a little bit similar kind of to my story, Jessie, because I, mentored under my previous partner. Well, he's still in the business, but he's in Mexico more than he's in the business. Let's put it that way. And, we were Chris Whitehead and Associates until November 2019. So it's interesting. What made you kind of choose that path of coming in underneath someone already in the business?
Well, so a big part of that was she was a big reason that I was already around it before I was in the business. Obviously, she's my hopefully soon to be mother-in-law. Yeah, no shade there, but waiting on that one. But yeah, so it really is more of like a family team. Yeah. And before you ask, because I know that's probably coming, what it's like working with a mother-in-law, really good, actually. She's a total pro at what she does, and she's very kind, and I've learned a lot from her, even in just the way she treats clients, right? Like the human side, not just the negotiating and the marketing and that sort of stuff, but even just face to face with clients and being thoughtful with clients and all of that, good stuff from her. So
when I do the podcast with Steve, I feel like I've got like a weird uncle or something, like that's our relationship.
Okay.
Everyone's
the
got
weird
that uncle
that, the weird uncle that drinks too much in public situations and says inappropriate things. That's me.
Yes, Steve. How's your January? We're past January now, but how did January go with the alcohol consumption and the weight loss challenge? Are you feeling good? Are you on track here? I know some people are invested in what you're doing, so I want to give them an update.
Haven't had a cocktail. I took that off of you. Haven't had a cocktail. Sleeps are way better. Everything's going fantastic, man. It's
amazing.
It's working well. The question is, how long can I keep it up?
Yeah. Jessie, YouTube. I want to talk about YouTube with you. Okay. So we made a few jokes already here. Honestly, you're doing such a good job. It's so cool to see that, from the beginning of me and Steve kind of yelling at everyone like, hey, maybe you should do this. You are one of the only people, seriously, that actually did it, consistently did it, put things out every single week. You had a video take off like 30,000 views. That must have been like, so give me the whole, like, what's this experience been like for you? Are you getting negative comments like me and Steve? Are you finding the channel's building? Like, what's going on?
So most of, we really haven't been doing it that long. We've been, I guess we started technically towards the beginning of last year, but we haven't really seriously been doing it like every week, making sure that something's going out for probably like 6 or 7 months now. But it's been really good. The first 100 was really hard to get. And then I think we're really slow, but our channel also isn't really set up for trying to get the most number of subscribers or the most number of that, because it's not really the point of our channel. We're trying to really just like make content that we would like to see as a consumer if we didn't have any other context with it, right? And trying to put that out for buyers, trying to put that out for sellers, and then the odd more catchy, more broad stuff as well, because I think that a lot of the times there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding a lot of the stuff that comes out that's splashy titles, right? So just kind of debunking some of that. But I think we're still we're under 500 subscribers, but we've definitely had bigger videos though, but it's hard to judge through Christmas too. So
it was slow. It was very slow.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself right now because trust me, my channel is having trouble. We can't all be Tom Storey with like 50,000 views last week.
That one just got blessed. It got blessed. It was luck. It was luck.
We
That's the
were
way I
close
feel
in
about
subscribers
ours.
until that point.
Yeah, you can see Steve's subscribers if you're watching on YouTube behind his head there. He's like calling me out in his videos now. People are commenting on his videos, Jessie, being like, "Don't worry, just unsubscribe from Tom. I hope you get there." Like we're starting a war.
Well, if you are
go.
in the GTA, if you're in the GTA and listening to this, you need to go to the Lisa Abbot team on YouTube
Agreed.
and subscribe right now, because the cool part is, Jessie, at 500, which you're very close to, community tab unlocks, and then you can do other engaging things that happen.
Yes.
I think you should be there. You should, if you listen to Tom Storey, like, unsubscribe from that right now and go subscribe.
I'm
to
on board with that
real,
one.
actual, good information.
You know what's going to happen, Steve, is Jessie's channel is going to take off, and she's going to beat us both to 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, and and we're going to retitle this show and kick you off of it. That's what we're going to do.
Kick me off of it. You're off of it.
Yeah.
It'll be me and Jessie.
It's going to be the Jessie, we are not sure how to say your last name, show.
McLellan.
All the time. There we go.
Yeah.
McLellan. Oh, I almost had it.
No, but like, honestly, it's cool to see. And if you're in that area, like, it is, as far as I'm concerned, you're doing the best job. You might be doing one of the best jobs in Canada in doing that. The
I appreciate
thing
that.
is,
That means a lot coming from you guys.
no, absolutely, keep it up. And I just think that you and I are at a disadvantage, and we can always use this excuse that we are in much smaller markets than Tom is. So he has an advantage. And
Here's what I will say,
story, and I'm sticking to it.
Can I just say to anyone listening that makes content is that you totally agree with what you say. It's easier for me to have Toronto in my title to get more views than Surrey or Durham, right? Like, it's just an easier click. But what I would say for people that are in those markets, it's much easier to build a loyal, small army audience of people that are really engaged and really care and there to watch the whole video because you were talking to them about their community, where Toronto is so big and so broad that, you know, a lot of my stuff, even though it's city focused, is macro. It's like I can't really dig in specifically to areas because I'd lose half the viewership.
Yeah. And just going back to what you had asked about comments or negative comments, I don't usually get them on my videos, but I feel like a lot of people just wouldn't subscribe or wouldn't comment on that stuff. But I have had a few that have just been kind of odd, but then people who have watched several of your videos will almost come and like defend what you're saying or say things like, you know, tell me you didn't watch the full video without telling me you didn't watch the full video. And so I mean, I definitely appreciate that part of it too, that the people
you're also very nice on your videos. You're very nice, so you're going to attract those people. I fight with people in my comments, so I get a lot more, you know, I'm like, you're a dummy, but you know, what are you going to do?
I fight with people in my head, and then I'm like, okay, let's edit it way back down, and we'll not say that today. But
this is totally off script, and not something I just thought of it right now, Tom. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. So sorry, Jessie, if I go off. I'm looking. I saw that review on Apple.
What review?
The one, I think you sent it to me at some time.
The funny one?
Yes, and I want to figure out how to read it on here, because if you give us reviews like this one with this
bring it up.
thought into it, we are going to read them on the air.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Storey team at LePage Signature in Toronto, Ontario. The Storey team focuses on satisfying all of their clients' wants and needs when either buying or selling real estate in the GTA. But don't take my word for it. They have way over 100 5-star reviews on Google from clients singing their praises after amazing home purchases and sales. From downtown Toronto condos to semis to detached homes, whatever your needs, Tom and his team promise to provide an educated, honest, and transparent approach to helping all of their clients achieve their financial and personal goals through real estate. So there is no need to search bus benches or newspaper ads anymore to find the right agent for you. Just visit www.storeyteam.ca to book a call with the Storey team today. That's StoreyTeam.ca. That's storeyteam.ca. This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach of any existing agency agreement.
This is the best thing. It's here somewhere.
I can pull it, John. I got it here if you want.
Okay,
So,
read it, but read it cinematically, Thomas, because
right.
if we get more reviews like this, they're getting read. This is so awesome.
Yeah. So this is Apple Podcast reviews. If you are enjoying the show, make sure to check out Apple Podcasts. So it is a 5-star review. Thank you, first of all.
We only get 5-star reviews.
For the most part, the title is second best podcast in the world, and it is from Pre-Con Dawn. That is the name of the person who wrote the review. Now I know exactly who it is, and I figured it out within.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I know exactly who wrote
I have
this.
no idea.
As I sip cocoa next to my fireplace, the lights peacefully dance on my top producer trophies, 2018 through 2022 5-time champ, as I reminisce on the year's standout moments. This was written at the end of last year. One of those moments for me was the much anticipated release of the Tom and Steve's Tom Storey Show. The best podcast in the world? No. But that's only because I haven't started my own podcast yet. In place of nursery rhymes, my firstborn will listen to the soothing sounds of Tom's voice, speaking of a bullish future, and the haunting stories of the 2022 rate hikes. Do yourself a favor and listen to the pod.
If you take that much time and effort to write a review like that, funnier the better, mind you, without swear words, we will read them.
I'd
Sorry
like to know
derail the podcast. I just think that's hilarious.
If you're watching on YouTube, comment below who you think that was. I'll give you a hint. They have been on this show. They were a guest on this show at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah, Steve doesn't even know.
Interesting.
Jessie, we got a few more minutes here, and I want to like kind of go into the industry a little bit. So you've been doing this, a period of time now. Do you have pet peeves on showing properties or what other agents are doing, obviously without saying names? Like, is there anything that just like drives you crazy about this industry?
Well, I can tell you some of the rules, like from REBA. So you actually did a video not that long ago where you went through and were showing pictures, and like what you could get in your market for a certain dollar amount, but you were actually going over some of the like MLS listings, right? And we can't do that here because that violates our advertising rules here.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm even allowed to do it.
On full public, I mean,
it wasn't
I'm very careful
broker.
I'm very careful to use full public when I do it.
Yeah. So, but even still, because technically I think we would need like permission to advertise or whatever. But anyway, I went through it with my broker manager and he was like, no, absolutely not. You can't do that. It violates the advertising rules. And I'm like, okay, well, is that a difference between here and BC, or I have no idea. But just
there's
certain things like that.
There's one thing there that I think previously could have when you're talking about like sold prices, and I do my best not to show like particular addresses and stuff.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
Previous to TREB losing, you couldn't have, there's no way you could have said what sold prices were. But now it's like, seems to be open season on sold prices. So
yeah, well, and just the lack of like consistency, I guess, between like, I was talking to my broker manager versus what you see people doing all the time, right? And that's super frustrating, kind of as a whole, but then also specifically what agents are doing. I think it goes into like market conditions too. Like I'm a big fan of, if I'm going to do an offer, I like to call the listing agent. If I'm going to, whatever, just the communication and the level of professionalism. And it's really nice when it's there, and it's really frustrating when it's not. Yeah, that's kind of my biggest pet peeve on that.
I had an offer come in on one of my listings last night, and I got 4 separate emails, each email with a different segment of the offer. So like the confirmation of cooperation in one, the offer in one, the 801 form in one email, and then the Schedule B in another email. I'm like, okay, well, this is off to a great start. And it was I'm not going to give specifics, but it was a low offer compared to what the property was listed at. Whatever, that's fine. You can make your offer So I called the agent. I said, like, how'd you come to your price? What's going on here? And she's like, well, the market's just different now. I'm like, okay, all right. Like I love to when like, because we do this, Steve, and because I get to look at the numbers and like, I know like the condo market from every single month, what exactly has happened. Like I know the numbers. So I love when someone tries to just, so what I'm trying to get at, long story short here, is like these blanket vomit statements of like, no, it's changed. It's like, okay, tell me how. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, it's just changed. Like, a lot of deals are falling apart that are conditional. I'm like, who? Which ones? Tell me, like, give me an example here. Like, back it up. You can't just, because if you're saying that to another agent, imagine what they're saying to their clients. Like, not to say make an offer, obviously, but like, back it up with something.
Tom, they're not saying anything to their clients. They're order takers.
Yeah, I know that.
Their clients are telling them what to do, and that's why the offer is ridiculous, and it's never going to come together.
But Steve, let's play devil's advocate here. I'm a consumer listening to this podcast right now. Yeah, damn right. I'm telling my realtor what I want to do. I'm buying the house. So what would be the answer to that?
Well, do you want to buy the house, or do you just want to put in an offer and have it thrown back in your face?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's really the reality of it. Like, sure, you can disagree on price or whatever. And we went off on this on a previous episode. Like, price isn't everything that shows me how well your contract is coming in. If you send me 4 separate emails, each with 2 pages of a 8-page contract, I can already tell we're not going so well. Right? Like, I don't know. When you said pet peeve, I just thought of something immediately, which is happening in our market nonstop. I don't know. Tell me if you guys get this. 45 minutes late for a showing, meh. And then they still just walk through the door, and then the owner's back home after leaving their house for half an hour, and then they're like, oh, weird. And it's like, you were 45 minutes late. You didn't phone to tell us. The owner left, so they assume you went through the property already, right? They've now come home. Oh, yeah, all the lights are still on, so maybe they just weren't. So we try and track down the person. They just come walking through the door 45 minutes after their scheduled appointment.
Do you get people that book and just don't show up? We get that. We haven't had a ton. Recently, we've got a lot of, like, I can tell the agent has gotten to the property and then the buyer cancels on them. So they probably weren't really a buyer. They're probably like a weak internet lead and they were just desperate trying to show any property. So we'll get a cancellation like 2 minutes before the scheduled showing. And then it's like, phone the seller, you can go back home. I know you left 15 minutes ago with all the lights on and all the windows open and all that stuff. But it's just like, and there's nothing you can do about this. Like, honestly, don't think, like, there's not going to be any fines for not showing up. There's not going to be any stricter rules for showing. It's just etiquette, and it's almost gone in a lot of markets. Jessie, do you find the same issues?
I think, and this is going to sound terrible because I actually did this the other day, not go through when I wasn't supposed to, not a time, like not going when I'm not allowed to be in somebody's home. But I had a buyer who was running late and I ended up having to cancel the showing. I'm already outside the house and they were like, I'm not going to make it like at all. We're just going to have to cancel. So that is the only time, in my opinion, that it's appropriate to call when it's either part of the way through the showing or hasn't started yet, but call and cancel. Like, I called, like, physically call, not just the office, but I called the agent and I said, let your people know that they can come back or what have you, because I'm sitting out this house outside of this house looking silly because my buyer isn't going to make it like it was a family emergency that came up.
Right.
But still have the decency to call, right? And that is always going to be handled so much better than, so what did you think of the house? Well, we didn't see it. We're not bringing an offer. We didn't see it. Right. And so I think and even that sucks to do. Like, but yeah, the showing up at people's houses when it's past your time slot, you're breaking into their home.
Yeah.
You're just like straight up not invited to be there at that time. So yeah, I have bad feelings about that. Or we would get people who would just release the lockbox combinations to their buyers without being there.
Yeah.
Steve's talked about my market right now. In my market, that's an immediate $10,000 fine.
Good.
As it should be. as
Yeah.
it should be. Yeah. And I mean, more so, I feel like it was happening in the like more rural properties, and agents who were, you know, in the city or closer to the city didn't want to have to make that drive.
Yeah.
But certainly not all agents in the city, obviously. But yeah, that's something that just drives me bonkers for sure.
My favorite is we send the auto feedback request, but honestly they're useless because it's like yes, no, maybe. You can't really, you can change the answers, but
Yeah.
it's not great. So we've actually
Yeah.
turned that off now. And when the market is slower like it is today, it gives us time when there's not 100 showings that we can call every agent and be like, what was it like? And we had one
Yeah.
recently where we knew the agent didn't go because the client was there waiting, and we called them and said like, how'd the showing go? They're like, which one was it again? Like I can't remember. I'm like, that's because you didn't go. Like, you know, so you can kind of call them out on it. But and there is a fine for it on the Toronto Real Estate Board. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But then it's the same thing, Steve, where we go back and it's like, you could go after them. Do you want to go after them, or you want to just move on with our day and try to sell this property to somebody else? And a lot of people
Right.
just want to move on.
Well, here's the one thing
especially if
where.
it's a
Sorry, go ahead, Jessie.
Sorry, especially if it's a matter of they were 45 minutes late, but their client really loves it and they're going to bring in an offer. They weigh it out, right? Is it worth going down that path of trying to get a fine or a RICO complaint, or is it worth looking at the offer that they're going to bring the property, right?
Yep.
So
I think it could be that the giving out of the lockbox code is one of the few where the other agent can complain. Like most complaints are public driven, not agent to agent driven.
Mhm.
And they're not, a lot of the agent to agent ones are not even allowed. They're just poo-pooed and just, don't trash talk your industry sort of thing, which is a big problem in our industry. But I think one of the ones where it's like, okay, that person broke the terms of cooperation, which is you will make sure you're there for the showings. I think that's one that we can actually track down. And if you know me, if you don't follow the rules, man, I'm the first one to roast you.
Hey, what would you do? There's a hypothetical situation that may or may not have happened to someone that I know. Let's say you're showing up to meet a client to show them a property. It's been booked. You show up on time. You meet the client. The client gets out of their car and they're holding a little tiny dog. And they're holding it in their thing. And they go, can we bring the dog into the property? What do you do? Not put the dog down, but hold the dog and walk around. Would most sellers be mad about that? You're already there. Should you call the agent and be like, hey, we're outside. We have a scheduled appointment. Are you okay if we walk in with a dog? Like, what do you do?
You are about to learn the difference between Jesse's channel and my channel. Jessie, I'll let you go first.
Honestly, if it's a small dog and it's going to be a 15-minute appointment or a half-hour appointment, which some people might disagree with, I would say, can you not leave it in the car? Like, can you not leave it in the car? I'm not talking about like a boiling hot day or whatever, but can you not leave it in the car for 15 minutes?
Yep.
That would be my response.
Has that happened to you, Tom?
No, not me specifically, but someone that I work with.
But Tom Storey, it happened to.
Mott Urats, my name backwards. That's my alter ego.
I would probably just say, I appreciate that you have your dog. Unfortunately, we do not have permission to bring it into someone else's house. It's going to have to stay in the car.
Yep.
And here's the thing. A lot of people don't know this about me. I will never have a dog. People, if you didn't already think I'm a terrible person, I will never own a dog. And it is because I just don't want the headache. You know, when you go to someone's house and it's just like, you're at a listing appointment and the dog just won't stop humping your leg. Like, it just,
Steve, that's how you get the listing. You start playing with the dog and the dog loves you and they're like, oh, you like dogs.
Maybe that's why I don't get any listings. I don't know what it is, but like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of, I'll tell you a really crappy story before we go. This will be my final thought. I went to, I was in New York, actually after an RI event in like 2012, and I got into a restaurant and my wife and I are sitting there in the restaurant. It's Tom Colicchio's restaurant. So like one of the most popular, like he's like the main judge on like Top Chef. Mm-hmm. And the dude beside us at the next table pulls up a chair and puts his English bulldog on the chair next to, like, head over the table. Like, they put down like a drool thing, like, for the dog.
Still had better manners than you that night.
And I turn to my wife and I say, if they let that dog eat at this table, we are leaving without paying our bill. And luckily the dog did not eat. But that was his support. That was this fella. And this guy was hilariously like big meatball Italian, like mafia looking dude, right? And he's got his dog at the table.
Maybe it was his emotional support animal, and you're judging him.
100% was. It 100% was. And yes, I am judging him for it. 100%. I am on team people. Animals are animals. And that's why I get negative comments on my channel. I am the Grinch.
Jessie, just to wrap up here, just your thought on housing outlook for the area that you service, Durham, for 2023. Listen, we all know no one knows exactly what's going to happen here, but just your gut feeling at the next whatever 11 months are going to play out.
I think prices are going to definitely be lower, but I think the buyer demand will still be there. I think it'll be all right. That's my outlook on it. There's too many buyers wanting to get in for it not to be, in my opinion.
Yep, that was awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. That was a really fun episode. Jessie, if someone is watching or listening and they want to learn more about you and your team, what is the best place for them to go?
They can go to the YouTube channel. We also have our website, oshawahomeSales.com. You can check out our Instagram, List with Lisa, and find us on Facebook as well, I guess. So, yeah.
Are you on LinkedIn and the TikTok as well, or are we straight away from the TikTok?
I am not on LinkedIn, which I probably should be. But yeah, no, I'm definitely not on TikTok. It might be something that we venture into, and no shade, because I know that there are some people that do amazing there. But I just, like, to me, it's still like 12-year-olds dancing, and I don't know what that says about my For You page, but but yeah, we're not on there.
Well, links for all of that are down below in the description of this episode, and everyone should go to your channel and subscribe right now.
Yep.
Specifically if you live in Durham Region. Yep.
Definitely do yourself a favor. Go do that. Go learn something new from Jessie, because I guarantee you will. Thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. Hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.